All right, hey, what's up, everybody? Let's see if everything's working. Welcome, first of all. Please tell me if you can hear me. Let's see here. We're waiting for people to get logged on. It just started. Looks like we got one person on. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, please in the chat, give a thumbs up. Let me know you can hear me. I want to make sure that the audio is working here. Okay. Hopefully it's good. Let's see here. I'm going to get this thing started here. All right. So today I want to do a couple things. I want to, one, answer your questions for sure. That's a huge thing I want to do today. It's really important. I got some great questions. I'm hoping to provide you a ton of value. But at the same time, I also want to talk a little bit about money before we get started, and a little bit about, money mindset and, why you should listen to me at the end of the day, because maybe you don't think you should. So first of all, just to know who I am, if you're on my page, you probably know me. If this got shared, you may not know me. My name is Jason J. Hamilton. I'm the founder and CEO of Keep It Simple Financial Planning. We're a registered investment advisory, and we really serve two types of clients. I help people that are within 10 years or less of retirement. So we help them retire with confidence. Our main client is somebody who's a little bit concerned that they're going to have enough money for retirement, and I help them create a plan to make sure that they don't run out of money. On the other side of it, I help people that are just getting started out. So it's kind of like a barbell approach. And the way I see it as well is that I can almost see people's futures, right? So I work with people that have done it. People that are millionaires, multimillionaires, that have multiple houses, a couple $1 million in the bank, good investments, all that type of stuff. And then I work with people that are just starting out. So what I do a lot of times is actually speak to the people that have done it and have done well, and then I bring that information and those techniques and behaviors to people that are just getting started out. So we're going to talk about both today. I have questions on both sides of the spectrum here, but hopefully you get a ton of value from what we're teaching today. And if you're so inclined, we really appreciate if you can go over to the nonprofit page. It's linked in the description up above, and make a small donation as little as $5. That would be wonderful. Anything you can do. But if not, that's okay. I'm still here to provide you a ton of value if I can, okay? So let's dig into some of these questions. And if you have questions along the way, my stream is going here on the left side. I can see it. Go ahead and just post them there, and I will try to get to them, okay? So the first question I got, it came in by email. And this question comes up all the time, and especially in California, it's really challenging, okay? So the question is, should I buy a house? Okay, I see so many people trying to buy a house in California that probably shouldn't. With the average house between $500,000 and $700,000, it's pretty easy to get in over your head on a mortgage, okay? So if you're going to want to buy a basic house, I'm in Orange County here, my family's from San Jose, you're going to spend $700,000, $800,000, or $900,000 to get a house. So if you have a good savings, a good down payment, and it makes sense, then okay. But if you're young, just starting out, I really hesitate to invite people to buy a house because there's a couple reasons why. People think buying a house is a good way to get rich. It might be, but in general, especially if you're not in California, nationwide, the price of homes and the amount they've increased in value over time has only beaten inflation by about 1%. But in California, people have done very, very well. It's a very interesting state here. States like New York as well. If you owned a house for 20 or 30 years, you've probably made a lot of money. But what I don't want you to do is get into a house that you can't afford. Okay, so I'm going to teach you exactly the range you should be in if you're looking to buy a house. Okay, so if you want to buy a house, this is how I look at when I'm advising somebody on how to work their way backwards through making that decision. Okay. So first thing is, is it affordable? Okay. So where I recommend you keep your mortgage payment is somewhere between no more than 25% to 35% of your take-home income. Okay. So whatever you're taking home. So if you take home $4,000 a month, for example, then your mortgage payment shouldn't be any more than say $1,000 to $1,300, $1,400, somewhere in that range. If you're taking home about $8,000 a month, that might be, a little bit more, about $120,000 in income or so. That is probably, $2,000 mortgage payment. That's not out of line. You can even go to $2,500. Once you start getting past this 35% range, and don't get me wrong, the mortgage companies will approve you up to about 45%. you get yourself into a lot of trouble, and it can get really tight when it comes to just the monthly living expenses, and get tight when it comes to saving. It can get tight when it comes to taking those vacations. So what happens is, if you buy too much house, you can become what's called house poor, okay? And that's what I don't want for people, is to buy too much house. So the answer is yes, long term, yeah, you want to have a house that you can own, that at some point you can pay off. But if your big scheme is to buy a house so that you can get wealthy, it's probably not a good idea, especially if it's draining you on a monthly basis and you're going to be struggling just to do normal things like saving and enjoying life a little bit, okay? So if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to post them. I think I'm getting all the comments here, but I'm not sure, so hopefully I am. But that was a question that came through. Another question that came through from the comments here is, what is the best way for a college student to make money without affecting their FAFSA? Okay, so FAFSA, for those that don't know, is the federal application for financial student aid. I think it's something close to that. So what that means is getting money and government assistance of some sort, or school assistance, to pay for college. College these days is insane with the amount of costs. It can be. You can go to a very affordable college, especially in California. We have a very good system here. The state system, the UC system, and the community college system are all very, very good. They work together. It can be very affordable. If you want to go to a private college, something like a USC, something like Santa Clara and San Jose, those can be $40,000 to $60,000 or $70,000 a year with all expenses included, living and everything. The worst thing you could possibly do is graduate from college with $100,000 in student loan debt. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. Okay, so what if you don't get grants and things like that cover all of your college, or you need to cover your living expenses? Okay, so the question is the best way to make money without. At the end of the day, if you make money, you're going to have to claim it, and you're going to have to pay taxes. Okay. So the last I could find for the limits on these was about $7,000 a year. So if you make less than $7,000, then you'll probably be in a good place. It won't affect your FAFSA at all. Or if your family is, relatively low income, somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000, depending on the number of kids, you're probably going to get, it's called EFC, expected family contribution. That'll probably be $0. So $25,000 to $50,000 for your family, you should be okay. Once you get above that, you may have a little bit of impact to your college. And their formula, I don't think it takes into account the high cost of living in certain areas. $60,000, like in Los Angeles, for example, is low income. If you're below $90,000, you actually can qualify for low income grants when it comes to getting things like housing assistance. So, these government formulas don't always take that into account. So you have to be careful when it comes to affecting your aid. Here's a quick story. So my wife, for those of you that don't know, Dorima, when she went to college, she went to Vanguard University here in Orange County. She tried to do the right thing. She worked as she was going to junior college before she transferred in. She worked, she saved money. She didn't make a lot of money, but she was over that $7,000 mark. Well, because of that, and it wasn't much over, it was only a few thousand over, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 over. Because of that, she lost a big chunk of what Vanguard typically would have given her if she didn't work. So the system itself is a little bit backwards. Okay, let's be honest. It is backwards. She tried to do the right thing. She tried to save some money, and it completely backfired on her when it come to getting financial aid. So it is what it is. Do I think you shouldn't work? No, but I do think you should have a game plan before you go into college. Okay, so you want to know what your limits are, what your spending what your spending should be, how much you should be earning, so that you stay under that to get the most aid. But at the same time, you don't want to just earn nothing and completely rely on your parents or government assistance. It actually is good for you to work while you're in school. So to get back to your question, the best way to make it, I think, is if working in a restaurant. If you can get a job making tips, for example, it doesn't have to be a restaurant, it could be somewhere. But if you can make tips as a college student, you can make a lot of money with very few days of work. So you can work 3 to 4 days, something like that, make $100 a shift, and do very well if you just do that while you're in school or during summer and save up some money. So I think that's a good place to earn money. Either way, you have to pay taxes, so there's no way to hide it unless you're earning cash and you decide not to pay your government taxes, which I don't recommend. Okay, so that you're going to want to claim everything. Okay, so that question should be answered there. Here's another one that's there we get all the time. What's the best way to grow your money with that would otherwise be sitting in a bank? Okay, so The real answer to this question requires a little bit more in depth. So what we need to know first is, what do you need this money for? Is it long-term money? Is it short-term money? Are you going to keep it more than 5 years? Is this money that you're going to be using 5 years or more out? Are you under 18? Here's an example. So if you're under 18, there is a bank called Bank of California that has a savings account for kids that are 18 or under. Okay, once you're 18, over 18, this expires. But if you're 18 or under, and if you're a parent watching this and you have a kid that's 18 or under, they can put money in this savings account. And right now they're earning the APR, so the annual percentage rate is about 3%. Okay, so 3% is very, very good for guaranteed money. It's really hard to beat that. And that would be just in a normal savings account with Bank of California. And that is up to about $10,000 is what we were told when we spoke with them. So if you guys hear that for some reason there's construction going on outside, there's never construction here. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully you can still hear me. So I apologize for that. But, okay, good. We got some more questions coming in. But 3%, that's a great way to do it. If you are over 18, there's online bank accounts, Capital One, Ally Bank. Those are going to give you about 1%, 1.25. There's not a whole lot of guaranteed money for the short term. You can also look at things like municipal bonds. Okay, so municipal bonds, what they are essentially is California wants your money, for example, like the city or the state, to work on a project. So they offer municipal bonds, which is essentially a guarantee that they're going to pay you a certain interest rate if you give them your money to use for a contract. So you could be 2%, 3%. The government does the same thing. There's something called Treasury bonds or TIPS, Treasury Inflation Protected Security. I think that's what it's called. I forget the S, but it's called a TIPS, T-I-P-S. Those will keep up with inflation. That's the idea. So generally you're going to earn 2 to 3%. I think the last I saw was like 2.23. Very, very safe. Government bonds are very, very safe. I know people freak out about, the government right now, but in all honesty, they've always made a payment. You've never had to worry about it ever. So TIPS, T-I-P-S, that's a good way to keep your money there. Sometimes they do have, time frames you have to keep them, maybe 6 months or a year, but that's a good place to look. CDs, they're okay. You're not really going to get a lot. You can probably get the same amount as you can get in a normal savings account using an online banker like Ally or Capital One or something like that. So under 18, Bank of California. Over 18, look at something like an online bank or look at something like a bond fund, like a TIPS or something like that. If you need help with that, email me. I'll help you out. Okay. So here's another question I got. This was by email. So I've posted before about student loan forgiveness programs. Okay. So this is a very, very touchy topic. Okay, these student loan forgiveness programs, there's so many scams, tons of scams. Okay, and the CFPB, which is a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they are the resource. Essentially, people go complain if they have problems with the student loan company. Well, the student loan companies are the ones that are supposed to help you get into these student loan forgiveness programs, and unfortunately, they've been telling people a lot of wrong things. So a ton of wrong stuff. And so they had like 14,000 complaints last year, something ridiculous, because people were put in a bad position, okay? So the real answer is, yes, they are real, but you have to meet certain qualifications, okay? The first qualification is you need to work for a 501c3 nonprofit or some other sort of public service organization. So there's many types of public service that qualify. If you are like a police officer, if you work in a hospital, if you are a teacher, if you work in just a normal nonprofit, has to be 501c3, can't be 501c6. But yes, they're absolutely real. So this is how they work essentially. Essentially, you enroll in a income-driven repayment program. Okay, there's many different income-driven repayment programs. There's some of the more popular ones are ones that are just like pay as you earn. So PAYE, for example. And then there's other ones that are just what's the word I'm looking for here? I forget the name of it right now, but there's about 4 or 5 main ones, and then there's about 35 total ones depending on your career, okay? So what you do is you get into one of these programs, you enroll, you fill out the form, okay? The form is very easy to find. You can just search it online, and once you're in there, for the general programs, the one that's the Public Service Loan Forgiveness, PSLF, that is essentially a 10-year, could be more, but it's 120 qualifying payments that you must make, okay? Your payments may be 0 depending on your income, but you have to make these qualifying payments. So here's an idea when it comes to these income-driven programs as well that many people don't think about. What if you are not working in public service, but our income is really low and you really can't afford your payments right now? What do you do? Okay. So what a lot of people will go into deferment and they'll put their payments off. Actually, I think that's a bad idea, because what happens if you do change careers and you could qualify at some point? There is also the long-term forgiveness, which is about 20 or 25 years. But you can get into one of these income-driven repayment programs. So there's Payee, P-A-Y-E, or Repayee, R-E-P-A-Y-E. And they pay off in 20 or 25 years. It's 20 years if it's undergraduate student loans. It's 25 if it is graduate student loans, okay? You can get into one of these, and actually, if they're going to count towards that program, and it will count towards your forgiveness if you do take that long. I don't recommend you stay in those payments for that long, but they will count towards that. But it's much better than just going on a standard deferment, because you get a limited amount of deferment. If you're on income driven, yes, if you start earning more income, your payment will go up. But at the same time, it's not going to be more than about 10% of your available income, right? So it's a pretty low amount for the most part. So yes, they are real. What you want to look at is working in some sort of public service, if it's a nonprofit, 501c3, or other public service, which it could be, the military, police force, firefighter, hospital, things like that. Okay. Any questions on that? Let me know. All right. Let's see. Next question. All right. What are the biggest expenses for someone who just graduated college? Okay. So this may be going out in different areas in the country, but if you're in California, your biggest expense is probably going to be rent. You may have lived at home during college, but once you move out, rent in California is insane. For most students. So last I looked, the average salary for a college graduate in California was about $54,000 to $60,000, somewhere in that range. Some schools are higher, but say $54,000 to $60,000. So that means after taxes, you're probably going to take home about $3,500 or so, maybe $3,800. If your rent, the average rent in, say, Orange County or LA is about $1,700 to $1,900. That's about half your money, okay? So that's going to completely wipe you out if you want to live alone. Best thing you could possibly do, yes, I want you to move out. I don't want you to stay with your parents, but get roommates. Get as many roommates as you can. Keep that as low as possible, and build your savings up as much as you can for when you have to move on your own, so that if you want to leave your job, there's a lot of options for you there, okay? So that is usually the biggest spend. Insurance can be a big one as well. If you have a family, insurance is going to kill you, but mostly it's going to be rent. Okay. Let's see. All right. So another one I get a lot is, should I be investing money in my 401k, or should I be paying off my credit cards if I have credit cards? That one, hurts my heart a little bit, because, we know credit cards are going to be somewhere between usually 12 and 25%, sometimes even higher. It's pretty clear cut that you need to pay your credit cards. Here's the thing though. If you get a match at work and you look at how much credit cards you owe, there can be a balance sometimes between what I would say. If you only owe a couple $1,000s and you can pay it off in 2 or 3 months, get the match, right? Because that's going to be free money. Say you earn $50,000 and you get a match on 5%. That could be 10% of your money. That could be $2,500 that you miss out on if you're not getting that match for the year. That's tax deferred, and you're lowering your taxes as well. So I definitely think that's the case. But if you're sitting on like $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 of credit card debt, yeah, you need to probably cut everything. You need to really discover why you got into that credit card debt and create a plan to pay those things off. Okay. The way there's really 2 ways to pay off credit card besides like making the minimum payment. There is the highest interest rate, or you can pay them off in the smallest balance. There's benefits to both, okay? Technically, mathematically, the highest interest rate would pay off first, but usually it might be a difference of like a month or 2 depending on the amount of debt. But if your biggest credit card has the highest interest rate, it may take a long time for you to pay anything off and get that win, right? So I like, if someone's not in too deep or if they need some help getting started, just start with the lowest balance credit card and pay that one first, and then go to the next lowest and then the next lowest. Because by paying those things off, you are going to get some momentum, and it's going to feel really good. You'll see progress. If you don't see progress for like 12 months or a year and a half because your biggest credit card has the highest interest rate, it's really hard to stay motivated, to be honest with you, from what I've seen. So I would definitely pay those off first. But if you're looking at a small balance, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and you have your option to contribute to your 401k, I would say contribute to 401k. Anything extra on the credit card, because that's if you have anything. If you don't have anything, then it needs to go. No 401k, you need to pay the credit card. Okay. All right. So here's the next question: how is a person who has never invested for the retirement get started? Okay. So this is a great question. We're facing a retirement crisis in the United States. The average retiree has about $100,000 of retirement savings, nowhere near enough. When I work with clients, I meet people, I speak to about 3 to 7 people per week on average, potentially new clients, okay? And usually they have somewhere between, 300,000 and like 3 million of assets that they're looking to hopefully live off of for forever. No matter what, I haven't spoken to somebody yet that was 100% confident that their money was going to last, okay? And honestly, you can blow through $1 million pretty easy these days. It's not that hard to do. But no matter what, no matter where you're at, you need to get started. And this is the simplest way, okay? So first thing you need to do is look at your timeline. How much time do you have? Okay, if you have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, either way, if you're still working, you should be contributing something. This is where I recommend people start. If you have a workplace plan, okay, if you have a workplace plan like a 401k, 403b, something like that, then start with that. If you get a match, get the match there. Okay, it's always good to get the match. It's 100% return or 50% return. You're not going to beat that in the market. Always get that. And then the next question is, where do you go after you get the match? Okay, if you've never heard of something called a Roth IRA, which is an individual retirement arrangement, it stands for individual retirement arrangement. If someone says individual retirement account, it's fine, but it's wrong. The IRS calls it an individual retirement arrangement. There's 2 types. There's traditional, and then there's Roth. Okay, traditional is when you put in money and you get a tax deduction for that year. So if you're 50 or below 50, you can put up to $5,500 right now. If you're 50 or above, you can put up to $6,500. Okay, and that will come off your gross income if you put it in a traditional account. So let's say, for example, you put in $6,000. Let's make it easy, and say you're in the 25% tax bracket. Well, you will get a 25% of the $6,000 deducted off your tax bill, essentially. So out of $6,000, you will pay $1,500 less in taxes this year. Okay, so that can be good. With the Roth, then you're going to put in money after tax. So you're going to pay your taxes already up front, and you're going to put your money in there. And that is good for a couple reasons. So the Roth account has some benefits. So once the money's in there, it's going to grow forever tax-free. The other benefit is if you're close to retirement, 70 and a half is a big marker for people in retirement. Once you hit 70 and a half, you are required by the government to take required minimum distributions from your 401ks or your IRAs, the traditional, okay? And those can be significant, and they could push you into a higher tax bracket depending on how much other income that you have. If you have money in a Roth IRA, you do not have to take that out at 70 and a half. It can grow tax-free forever. You can then gift that to your child or your grandchild, and it can continue to grow for many years without having to worry about it. So getting back to the original question, if you don't have a workplace plan, which I know a lot of people don't, just open up an IRA. A couple of good companies to start are Vanguard, Fidelity. I really like Betterment as well. Betterment is it's called a robo-advisor, but essentially they build a portfolio for you. They charge you a little fee, it's not very much, but they give you a great portfolio to get started, and so that you're diversified, and you don't have to really know a lot, and you just can put a little bit of money, and I think you can start with $100 a month, maybe 50. But as long as you commit at least $100 a month, you can get started there, and I think the minimum is $0. If you want to go to Vanguard or Fidelity, typically you have to save up $1,000 to $3,000, somewhere in that range. But you want to get started, and before you even do that, you want to at least get some cash put to the side, at least $1,000. Hopefully 3 months of expenses is great. But if you're close to retirement and you're still working, you have very few years to actually get this tax-deferred growth. So putting money in a Roth IRA as well, you could take the money out at any time, your contributions, not the growth, but the contributions, at any time if you were to need it. So, with people that are just getting started and they're late, what I say is open up a Roth IRA, start putting money in there. I don't want you to start investing it yet until you get to, $1,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, because you may need that money for an emergency. But it's a good place to start if you needed it. And then once you hit that, then we can start moving it into some investments, and start helping you grow that for the long term. Okay. So person who's never invested for retirement, that's where I would say to get started. Really, you got to figure out, where you're at, create a plan, write out a budget, see how much extra you could put. Anything will help though. If you have 3, 4, 5 years, many people I speak to now, I'm speaking to 70 and 75-year-olds that are still working. They don't want to quit work. They're healthy. They're happy. And the average time from the traditional, 65 retirement, it could be 20 to 40 years. It's very reasonable that you could be living 20 to 40 years after you're 65. So you may not just want to just sit at home, once you turn 65 and retire. You may want to work still. So if you're still working and earning income, you can continue to contribute to IRAs or 401ks at your workplace as long as you have an earned income of some sort. Once you retire fully, you cannot. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about that. But many people, 75, they're still very vital. And here's the other thing too, is they're actually going to be printing organs. It's already happening. It's expensive right now, but in the next probably 3 to 5, 7 years, you're going to be able to get your organs replaced. Your heart, your liver, your kidneys, they're going to be able to replace those from your own cells. So if you think that you may just pass away, at 70 years old or 75, it's a good chance if you're already 60, you're going to live a long time. So you want to put a plan in place for the long term, okay? So hopefully that answers that question. Let's see here. Got a question. I am retired from the Navy and have guaranteed income of $4,500 net per month. That's very good. I disclosed escrow 5 weeks ago to purchase price of $305,000. I'm guessing that's on a house. Payments are $1,600, including property tax, and $40,000 in saving. I'm 71. How much can I spend from savings each month? So this is a good question. So you have guaranteed income of $4,500. Your mortgage is covered at $1,600, which leaves you $2,900 left over to spend. If you have Navy, I'm assuming that your medical is covered as well. So medical is probably taken care of if you have Navy retirement. So the biggest expenses in retirement are typically, housing if you have it, if you don't have your mortgage paid off, and healthcare. If those are taken care of, you do have some liberty there with your income. You could probably spend a little bit more. What you want to be considerate of is if you just bought a house, you may have repairs that come up because you just moved into the house, and there may be things that you find. A lot of times you buy, a house that's not brand new, or even a brand new one, or a used car. Seems like a great deal, but sometimes you find things later that weren't disclosed or the inspections didn't come up with. So for you, I would recommend you have $40K put aside. That's pretty darn good. So for you, you might be in a good place to actually enjoy and have a lot of fun with your income. But as long just keep that savings, keep that savings high. Don't go blow it all crazy like that. But what I'd be looking at for you is what sort of legacy goals do you have? Okay, so there's 4 L's that really come up with retirement. Lifestyle, legacy are 2 of the big ones that people really, and longevity is another one that really come up. But what do you want your legacy to look like? Do you have kids? Do you want to leave money for your kids? That's a big deal, because if you're not going to be using all this income, you could be putting money into some investments that would grow long term and that you can hand those down, because would you say you're retired from Navy, 71 years old, you may have another 5, 10, 15, 20 years easy. And 20 years is a long time. If you can put away even $300, $400, $500 of that, enjoy the rest, that could turn into something very, very significant for your kids. So that's something I would look at. Same thing for you. You can start with somewhere like a Betterment, a Vanguard, something like that. If you need help, reach out, email me. I can help direct you where to go with that. Okay, so really, really good question. Okay, here's one of my great ones I get for retirees. What are annuities, and are they a good way to save and plan for retirement? Okay, so annuities can be good or bad. Okay, so when you see people going into retirement, the number one thing they're worried about is running out of money. So what sounds better than guaranteed income, right? People want guaranteed income, and that's what annuities can provide. Social Security is actually a form of an annuity. Social Security, once you take it, you get a certain payment, and that payment, it does increase with inflation, usually not very much, but it's pretty much going to be the same forever. And that's what happens when you buy an annuity. Here's an example I could share with you that I had a couple situations recently that annuities were decent and then they were bad, okay? So I had one client that bought an annuity many years ago. I think it was 12 years ago, still had it. This annuity company actually underestimated what interest rates were going to be. So right now, interest rates are very low. The lowest they've almost ever been. They've gone up a little bit. But if you can get a house mortgage for 4%, it's very, very low. It's almost like free money. Back in the 80s, house loans, for those of you that remember, were like 10%, 16, 20% for a mortgage loan. So money at 4% is very low. Well, if you bought an annuity, they usually lock you in a contract that says, okay, once you annuitize, you're going to get this guaranteed interest rate or a range typically. Typically, there's a floor and a ceiling. So ones I've seen now are between like 1% and 4%. This particular one was he would get at least 7% or 7.5% of what he put in when he went into retirement. So a guaranteed 7.5% is very, very good. So in that case, I recommended that he keep that because it's really hard to beat that on a guaranteed basis, okay? Especially after, when you're in retirement, you don't want to have a lot of volatility in your portfolio. So that was good. They actually, the annuity company made him a cash offer to buy that annuity out, okay? That's how good it was because they knew they messed up. But there's other ones I've seen recently as well that people are putting money in and their floor is 1%. The max they can get is 4%, okay? This last year, the stock market returned about 16%, 16.92, something like that. So even though if they would have had just a basic, S&P 500, like a basic just owning, the biggest companies in America type fund, you would have gotten 16% return. That's not common. That does happen, decently often, but not very often. And if you remember back in 2008 where things went down 50%, you'd rather have 16% any day. Well, this particular annuity was only returned about 3%. And, that's pretty terrible. That's basically like, the good savings account I told you about. Not only do they only get 3%, but there's actually a yearly fee as well. Okay, so the fee on the annuity was about 1.25% to manage that. So their net return was only about 1.75 on one of the best years that we've had in I don't know how long in the stock market, at least a decade, right? So that one sucked, okay? So that one was horrible. So, and then when we looked into it even further, if you buy annuities, typically, you're going to have a surrender period as well. Surrender periods are usually somewhere between 6 to 10 years. And just so you know, if you're looking at these type of things, if you're going to buy an annuity and you have a 10-year surrender period, that means the person that's selling that to you is getting a massive commission, okay? Typically, it's like 10% if it's that long of what you're putting in. So, for example, if you put in, say, $1 million to an annuity, that person is probably going to get a $100,000 commission just for selling you that product, okay? What that means is if you try to get out of it before that 10-year period, you are going to be the one that pays that commission back. So here's something I can't tell you specifically because it's a private client thing, but the amount they had to return was about 8%, for example, of what they put in there. Well, even if they wanted to take the annuity, their payments, we mapped them out over the next 10 years. Even if they took their payments and they didn't cash out the annuity and take the surrender, they still would have only gotten about 93 or 94% of their money over 10 years of their original money. So that doesn't account for the future value of money. It doesn't account for any earnings. It was absolutely horrible. So we made a decision to get out of that thing because it was horrible. Because if we can just get her 4 or 5%, 2 or 3 years, she's got all her money back. And then the next 7 years, it's all money in the bank for her going long term. So, annuities, I'm not 100% against them, but I do think they're oversold. They play on people's, these annuity salespeople, they play on people's fear a lot. People going into retirement have a lot of fear of running out of money. So, they justify selling this annuity with guaranteed return because they have a fear of running out of money. So, it's honestly not good. I'd rather see you sit in cash most of the time, or just do what I like to call a bucket strategy, okay? So for those of you that have never seen my most recent webinar, I would love for you to see it. If you're interested in retirement, you can go to my website. I will type that in. Let me see if I can get that to you here. Let me do a new overlay. So if you want to see a good retirement webinar that's going to give you 5 steps to a confident retirement that I did that I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on, I'm going to send you there to check it out. It's free, and it's about 45 minutes, but I promise it will be the best use of your time. So you can go to this website right here, okay? kisplanning.com/webinar. Click on the button there, you'll be able to get to it. If you go to that, I talk about all of this, okay? So it's something I call a bucket strategy. So if you're going into retirement, okay, The way I look at people's assets typically is I take the whole amount and then I separate it, okay? So I'm going to look at it in different buckets. So I'm going to look at it on, like I say, a 1 to 3 year time frame, maybe 3 to 5 or 3 to 7. And then we're going to go from 7 to 10 years and then 10 years plus, okay? If you have a 20 or 30 year retirement, you can't just have all your money sitting in cash. It's going to lose value every single year. Things go up in cost every single year. So you can't do that. But if you're very nervous, then I do think keeping like 1 to 3 years of expenses in cash or cash equivalent, something like the TIPS I told you about, Treasury, inflation protected securities, or even just, some simple bond fund. It's very safe. You're not going to see a lot of any volatility actually, and you'll probably get, 1, 2, 3% a year. So that's okay. It's even good to keep some in cash. Well, once you get past 3 years, you have 3 to 5, then I think you can take a little bit more risk. Because most market dips, the market dips every year, right? You're going to see a market go down every year, averages, 1 to 5% or so. You're going to see a dip. Sometimes it goes up, but it changes all the time. But over, 3 to 5 years, there's very few times where the market's actually stayed down. Again, we know about 2008. We know about 2001, the tech crash, and then 1929, and even 87, which is, they call that Black Monday, where everything went crazy. But, once you get the 5 years, I believe there's only like 3 or 5 periods of 5 years or more over the last 70 years that the stock market has actually lost money. And when it did, it was very small. It's between like 1 to 3 or 4%. But if you have a balanced portfolio where you have some American stock, right? So some U.S. stock, or U.S. stock funds, I should say, some international funds, and then you have some, a bond portion and even a cash portion. Being truly diversified means that, say the U.S. funds go down, well, that means the other stuff should be going up, right? If your whole portfolio goes down at one time, that means you're not truly diversified, right? And that's what happened to a lot of people in 2008. They had a ton of their money in company stock, right? So they had, half their 401k, and I see this a lot. And this is the Enron situation. So Enron, people had pretty much only Enron stock in their company 401k. Well, when Enron went to zero because of the fake accounting that was going on there, they lost their whole savings. Company stock's not a bad thing because a lot of times you can get discounts of like maybe 10% or 15%, but you don't want to have your whole portfolio locked up into this stuff. So if you want to do company stock, 10 to 15% is fine. Get that. I know a lot of people that buy it and then they sell it immediately when the vesting period is up. So sometimes that's immediate, sometimes it's 6 months or a year. But if you can get a 10 or 15% discount and the company stock doesn't move, you make 10% right there. It obviously can move, so it's a risk at the end of the day. But if you're doing only 10% of your overall portfolio net worth, you're probably going to be fine. Okay. So, but again, you don't want to have everything in one type of fund. You want to do international, you want to do some US, you want to do some bonds, and you want to keep some cash. So once you get to that 5 year to 10 year bucket, okay, or 5 to 7 year, you can take on a little more risk there without, necessarily putting your retirement at risk, because as long as the money's going to be there for at least 5 years and you have enough cash and cash equivalents, you're protected during that term. It may just be a small amount of risk, right? But if we can earn you 2, 3, 4, 5%, you're going to beat inflation, and your money's going to be worth more, than it would be when, it would be if you just left it there, right? And you're beating inflation. Once you get past that 5 years, or and then the 10 years, you can definitely take a little more risk there as well. So that 10-year bucket, you want to be earning at least, say 7% average, something like that, 6 to 8, 9%. That's conservative, so that you're not only keeping up with inflation, but your money's growing, so that as expenses increase, as healthcare increases, things like that, you're able to keep up with that. It's really, really important that you have those buckets. So 1 to 3 year bucket, 3 to 5. You can do 5 to 7 or 5 to 10, and then 10 years plus. That's typically how I will break up an overall portfolio. So people that if they are worried about the risk of the market, or if their money were to dip too much, they wouldn't be able to pay their expenses without drawing down on the principal. That's probably how I'm going to break that one up. Okay. So versus an annuity, annuities have their place, but very, very rarely will I go there versus doing something like I just taught you about. Okay. All right. Let's see. Next question. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this. If you like this, please, share it. Give me a thumbs up, whatever. Hopefully it's helping you out. I would love to answer any more questions. Feel free to put them down below. Okay, so is there an effective / real-time way to track spending? Receipts and Excel sheets are hard to keep up to date. Yes, absolutely. So you can use, there's many programs, okay? You can use something like Mint. Mint's good, mint.com, but the problem is like, it's free, right? So when anything is free, that means you're the product, which means that you're going to get hammered with like credit card offers. You may get investment company offers if they know you're making good money. So Mint is good, it works, but you know, it's free, so that means you're the product. There's something else I see people having a lot of success with, which is called You Need a Budget. It's an app. So you can get it on your phone, it's on your computer, YNAB. It's called You Need a Budget. I think it's like a one-time cost of $30, right? But at least you're not going to get marketed to, and it has a really nice layout. It's a real easy way to break down your finances, to keep track of them. And if you want to do it manually, you know, and keep up with things like on a monthly basis, that's good. What I like is, you know, I use a financial planning software that just connects to your bank accounts and learns your spending habits, and it will just do it all for you. That's what I like. But I think when you're starting out, honestly, the first thing that you should do is probably write out your expenses and create a plan, 90 days of that. Once you get really good at that and you understand your expenses, then I think it's okay to go to something digital. But until it's something digital, just use a phone, like a yellow pad, super simple. Write down all your expenses, create a plan before you get your paycheck, and spend according to it, you know, because then you'll really know if your spending is on track or not. If you just swipe your cards and then hope there's enough, then a lot of times you can be way off base. People are way off base sometimes. So start with paper, then go to digital. You Need a Budget. Mint.com is good. There's a few other budget ones, but those you can hook your accounts up to, and it will do the work for you. Okay. All right. So let's talk about index funds. Good question. Okay. So I love index funds. Okay. So the financial industry, to be honest, I'm a part of it. Okay. I own a firm. The reason I started is because it's horrible. And I think a lot of people need help, and I wanted to help as many people as I can, right? But when it comes to investing, there's just a lot of garbage out there, and there's a lot of stuff that I still see it's rampant. And even from some of the biggest like radio hosts that talk about money and investing, I think they are ruining the people's futures and the financial industry partially because they don't really direct anybody ever to index funds. That's very rare. Okay, so let me talk about what index funds are so that we're on the same page. So if you've never heard of an index fund, maybe you've heard of a mutual fund. Very similar, okay, or an ETF, exchange traded fund. Essentially what it is it's a group of stocks, okay? It could be stocks, bonds, whatever it is. But say, for example, you may have heard of the S&P 500. So the S&P 500 is the 500 largest companies in the U.S. These are all big companies like you've heard of before. Google, Apple, Facebook, Chase Bank, all these big companies, Berkshire Hathaway. You'll get about 500 in an S&P 500. So an index fund means you have a fund with that particular index. So there's indexes like the S&P 500. That's the large companies. There's an index called a Russell 2000. So Russell 2000 is small companies, right? So I don't know where Tesla's at. Tesla was in there. So companies like Tesla, LinkedIn, small companies, okay? That's an index, okay? So Dow Jones Industrial Index, that's an index. There's many different indexes that are out there, but the reason why index funds have become popular is because you can buy that index and the fees are very, very low. Like, for example, you can buy a Vanguard, like Total Stock Market Fund or the Vanguard 500 fund, and your fee might be 0.05%, okay? Wonderful, okay? You can go to like one of these big broker dealers, and I won't say the name because I don't know if this is going to go public, but pretty much look at like any corner people that are selling investments, like making commercials, any insurance company, like they're all going to try to sell you this stuff. They'll sell you the exact same thing. So it'll be an S&P 500, but it's a mutual fund, okay? So mutual funds are typically actively managed by a mutual fund manager. Statistically, only 8% of mutual funds actually beat the index of the equivalent with the lower fees over long periods of time. So the reason why index funds are great is you can own the same stocks that are in there, pay a lower fee, but get a better return after expenses without having to do any work, really. You don't have to pay an active manager to do that. Not only that, a lot of mutual funds will have what are called front loads, okay? Front loads are something, this drives me crazy because I really respect this guy, but there's a very popular radio personality that says front loads are fine, okay? And he sends people to these broker dealers and they're paying 5.75% of every dollar they put into these funds. And that's the broker's commission, okay? I think that's horrible, to be honest with you. I just had somebody come over recently from one of these companies. I really want to say the name, but I just would hate for this to, get back to me or whatever. The initials are EJ. I'll leave it at that. You can do some research on that. But this person put this poor lady into funds that have 5.75% front loads. Okay, so this is what that means. If you put in $1,000, okay, what's 10% of $1,000? It's $100, right? So 5.75 would be $57.5. So if you put $1,000, that broker is going to get a commission of $57.5. Doesn't seem like a lot, but if you put in $1 million, okay, and you put $1 million into this fund, what's 5.75% of $1 million? So 100,000 is 10%. So that's about $57,500 in front-loaded commission that's going to go to this broker. I think that's horrible. Okay, so index funds have came in. They essentially do the same thing, but you avoid those front-loaded fees. And on the other side, the mutual funds have a management expense, so you have to pay somebody to manage it. Could be 0.5%, could be 1%. I've seen high as 3% to manage it, and that's every year. You have to pay that. So so if you earn a 7% return and you have a 3% expense or a 2% expense, your return to you is only going to be 4 or 5%. Horrible. You could have bought the same thing but bought an index fund and paid 0.05 or 0.1 or 0.2 percent, because you do have to pay expenses of some sort. Okay, it costs money to manage these things. They do trade the stocks out sometimes, and it just costs money to run a business. Okay, there's nothing wrong with these companies charging a fee, but paying 1, 2, 3, or 4% plus a 5.75 commission is crazy. So if you're looking to get started with investing, index funds are a great place to start. I actually like exchange traded funds as well. They're very, very similar. The difference is the way they're traded. Okay, so I don't want to get too nerdy, but index funds essentially trade one time a day, so at the end of the market. And so whatever price is at the end of the market they close on, that's what price you can buy it for, and that's on a daily basis. With ETFs, exchange traded funds, they essentially trade like a stock, but they're a fund, so you can trade them at any time. The benefit there is if you have a diversified portfolio, you can actually, if the market has little changes, there's computers now that can actually sell one fund, buy another, and capture the loss. So they buy the exact same fund, but just a different provider, and they can capture the little losses there. And so what that is, the benefit to you is you could do something called tax loss harvesting, because every year you can deduct up to $3,000 off your taxes if you have any sort of losses from stock. So again, I don't want to get too nerdy on you guys, but there's many benefits to the ETFs versus the index funds. But index funds are great. I own them. I've owned them for many years. I love them. So it's a really, really great place to start. And if you don't know where to start, you can do something as simple like Google 3-fund portfolio. 3-fund portfolio. And what it'll pull up is, it's usually a Vanguard, these Vanguard diehards. So Vanguard's a big, huge company that has index funds. And they have some of the best, some of the lowest fees, very well managed. And you can just simply buy the total US stock market. You can buy the total international stock market. And you can buy the total bond stock market. If you have a combination of those things, you're completely diversified, very simple. You don't have as many opportunities for tax loss harvesting. But if you're doing these things on your own, hey, it's a great place to be. So hopefully that answers your question on index funds. That was a little bit long, but I want to make sure I'm giving you guys the best info. Okay, any other questions that came in here? No? Okay. Let me go to some other ones I had when they were email. Okay. Let's see. I think that's covered most of what I have. So what other questions do we have? Does anybody out there have questions we can answer? And I'm going to remind you, if any of this has been helpful to you, we're really trying to raise some money for our nonprofit, for a nonprofit I'm on the board of. It's called Ideal CDC. We're trying to send, about 10 kids to college debt-free. We're trying to help them get coaching and laptops and a lot of things we're trying to do for them. These are some very, very low-income families. So if you can click the link down below, donate anything you can. $5 helps. It'll be 100% matched today. So it's a big deal to get that today because it will match it. And so your money will go very, very far. So anything you could do, if you can't, it's okay. We totally understand, not a big deal. But if you can do anything to help out, it'd be really, really wonderful. We appreciate it. So I don't see any other questions coming in here. So, what I'll leave you guys with is this. So like I said, I work with people that are on both ends of the spectrum. Some that are getting started, some that become very wealthy. Here's what I've noticed is the big difference, okay? It's not really about necessarily how much you earn, even though that helps, okay? So earning a lot helps. But it really comes down to your mentality when it comes to how you handle your money and how you see money, okay? So if you have the mentality that money comes easy, money is abundant, and money is not something that's a scarce resource, then usually the money ends up coming in. But if you feel like money is a scarce resource, or you're scared to talk about money, you're scared to learn about it, you're scared to really dig into your situation and deal with your finances, that keeps you in a place of scarcity mentally. And money it's weird. You can say this is weird, but there's an energy that is around it. And it is attracted to people that take care of it well. It truly, truly is. I truly have seen that, and I truly believe it. So part of that is just being comfortable talking about it. And honestly, in our class that we have, our financial literacy class, I share this with you. There is really nothing people prefer to talk to about, or they really hate talking about money over anything else. People will talk about politics. People will talk about their weight. People will talk about leaked nude photos online. They'd rather talk about that than talk about their money. So by talking about it and being comfortable with it and not being scared and not thinking you're not going to have enough, that's the first step to really doing well with money, because money is neither good or bad. It's simply a magnifier, okay? It's a magnifier of really the value you're providing to the world and how many people that you're helping, okay? So if money is tight for you right now and money is something that's not coming in, find a way to help more people, find bigger problems to solve, and find ways to provide value to the universe, because money is attracted to that. And if you just think only about yourself, money's not really attracted to that. That's a scarcity mentality. So really focus on providing that value, getting comfortable talking about it. Here's the other thing. Delayed gratification. Okay, we are in a society that does not respect delayed gratification. But by waiting, being patient, putting off things, not having comparison syndrome, not comparing yourself to others, not worrying about what people's car they have. And I'm in Orange County. Okay, Orange County is probably like comparison syndrome central. People here will go broke. They'll ruin their marriage. They'll go through all kinds of other things to be able to put on a front, to have a certain type of car, to have a certain type of house. And they refuse to be honest with themselves that image is really not that important, And I know there's a lot of pressure in society to maintain a certain image, but if you can get past that and you can focus on getting your financial house in order, managing your money well, creating a plan, having a long-term game plan on what you really want, what you want to do with your money, and then you start each month and you create that plan ahead of time, and you make sure you're saving a little bit each month, you're giving some each month, and you're doing things that really bring you joy, that's where you're going to get the biggest benefit from money, okay? So these things are all so important. I know it's kind of like out of left field. It's not technical. It's not necessarily about the numbers, but it is about your habits, your behaviors, and your mindset when it comes to attracting money and handling it well, okay? These are all things that we talk about when we work with people, either in my practice, and this is with millionaires. I work with people that have $1 million net worth that are so fearful that they're going to run out of money. And, it's just for most of us that are on this right now, we would be happy to have $1 million. We think we'd be in a good place. But because their mindset's not right, that's something I really got to help them through when it comes to transitioning to retirement and being comfortable leaving work. And this is if you're just starting out as well, okay? So this is everybody. You're not unique. You're not alone out there. A lot of people feel this way, okay? But there's a lot of people that don't as well. And that's the other thing I realized. There's plenty of people that have figured this thing out. They got their mindset right. They're handling their money well. And if that's something you need help with, if you need help with the game plan, you need help with just getting started. If you're just getting started, come to one of our classes. It's free. Sometimes we charge a little bit, like $20 or $50. But if you submitted the question here, email me. I'm going to put the email up, Jason at kisplanning.com. And you'll get a free ticket to one of our classes. If you can't really afford to come to one of our classes, we'll invite you in, no cost, okay? So email me, Jason at kisplanning.com, and we'll get you in for free. But if you need help getting started, come to one of our classes. If you want more one-on-one coaching, then again, email me as well. I can offer that as well. We want to help you no matter what stage you're at, okay? We can really, really do a lot to help you out no matter where you're at. You'd be really surprised, but you have to reach out. You have to be confident enough to say, it's time to get help. I'm tired of living like this, or I want to get this right before I retire, or I want to get this right before I have kids, or I want to get this right before, I get married. I should have, that's another question that's on here. But, getting your money right, it just takes away so much stress, so much hassle, and having that right takes away a lot of pain in people's lives. Because once you get that right, you can focus on your career, you focus on growing your business, you can focus on your relationships, and that's when life starts to really become abundant and fall into place, okay? So I really hope I provided some value for you guys today. I really hope I answered your questions in a good way. I didn't see any comments telling me that I didn't answer the question, so hopefully that means I did. I would like to do these more often. If you guys like this, then leave me a comment down below. I'll try to do these more often. I can do them, once a month, once a week, whatever. But I would love to help you out with your questions and, serve you the best I can, okay? So other than that, guys, have a great one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for just, supporting this. And if you can give at least $5, like I said, anything, anything helps. And if you want to do between $5 and $50, there's a little button. You just go down below, make a custom amount, $10, $20. It all adds up. It's going to go to a very, very good cause. You're going to help out some kids that are busting their butts. They're getting good grades. They have a ton of negativity around them. They have a ton of teachers that are telling them they can't do it, that they're going to stay, poor in a bad area of town, and they're refusing to break out of that. So we're helping them with their mindset, with their financial skills, their life skills, and their college application, their college prep, okay? So that's what we're doing with this money. It's all going to them. It's going to go to scholarships, laptops, everything like that. And if Amy knows who she is, she's trying to get us some laptops right now from City National Bank. She's submitting it today. We want to thank you so much for that she's going to really do everything she can. And if you can't personally do it, maybe your workplace has a gifting program. I know Allstate has given us some money. I know other companies have gifting programs that can help donate as well. So anything you can do, guys. This is a great organization. I truly believe in it. And they're giving back a ton and serving a huge community of first and second generation immigrants that want to be here and do the right thing and be very successful in the United States, okay? So once again, thank you so much. I hope to talk to you guys soon. Leave me a comment. Leave me a like. Let me know what you want to learn more about, and I will do this again if it's something you guys want to see. Okay? Have a great day. Bye-bye.